On the agenda tonight, we're going back to the 2000s and we're going to be taking a look at Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and they're going to be performing Running Down a Dream. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So this video is going to be a little bit different because the request was very specific to take a look at Mike Campbell and his lead guitar solo in this live performance. So we will be doing that. We'll also look at the performance overall, but I will be getting out the guitar and just breaking down a little bit of Mike's playing and some of the concepts that he applies to this particular lead guitar solo. Just a quick amendment to the video. Unfortunately, it has been blocked worldwide on copyrights, so I'm re-editing it and I'll upload again without any of the performance. I'm going to leave a link to the performance that I watched in the description below. I'll also pin it to the top of the comments section so you guys can go and watch that. Come back here for the analysis, and just for reference, the solo that Mike Campbell plays is pretty similar to the original record. So all of the techniques that I'm describing and displaying and demonstrating will be prevalent on the recorded version of the song as well, but I will see you guys in the comment section. But let's get the guys up on screen and see how they get on. But this, as a live performance, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers were one of those outfits that when they played live, that is when they're at their best. And all of the records, those versions that they got down in the studio, was just them playing live. So when you see performances like this, especially with the full band, the keys in there, the little run we had, but the way that it's all been put together dynamically, because look out for the way that the drums are just straightforward the whole time, and they're not being held back dynamically in the verses, but what is happening, the other instruments dropping out, so that you get that space underneath that lead vocal in order to give you that dynamic change for the rest of the band, whereas the drum is just straightforward the whole time, leaning into it. So it does give that impression of having a little bubble of space underneath the vocal. It's so well executed live here. Once you've got that quality, you can then put this mix together, which is so well mixed as well. Just to focus on Mike a little bit here, Mike Campbell on rhythm guitar at the moment. He will be playing lead later on, and we'll jump into that as well. But we have this riff that runs throughout the song, and it's in the intro and also after the chorus. It's a great little hook, and it's this little rundown that we have, and this is going to be in E. And when you get down to the bottom of the guitar, you don't want to be playing an E major or an E minor. You want to just be playing an E5. So make sure that you mute that G. So we've got this once we go down to the bottom. And if you do want to have access to that with the first finger, then make sure that you play that third fret of the low E string with the second finger, because then you'll have that first finger ready to put in that E5. Strumming wise on that right hand, you can either do this with all downstrokes like that, and you noticed hopefully that I did a little upstroke there on the high E string and the B string in order to get that little flick. That's something that Mike puts in there and lets that ring out. Don't worry about playing this precisely, it's all about just getting into the feel of it. So once you've got that, then you're just going to be looping that round and round. And Mike is actually playing this with alternate picking. You can do downstrokes or alternate picking, it's up to you. But this, that was the alternate picked version. So you're not going to get much sound difference between the two versions. It's whatever you feel most comfortable doing. Just to mention as well, in the verses, we have our E5 ringing out. And hopefully you could notice there, I'm resting on the G, so it doesn't sound. And we go over to a really nice D sus2 sound in the chorus. We've got the D sus2 in there, G, the E5. You can hit those top strings if you want to. And then we've got our E5 again, So I think it's just going to be those chords that are repeated. The only other chords that we have are just in the little breakdown section where we have this really cool C major 7th sound, and this is just playing a C power chord, and I'm going as far as that octave with the 5th in between, but then making sure that my hand's vertical so that it's leaving space underneath my fingers for the E and the B to ring out. Just like that, really nice sound. And then sliding up 2 frets. And doing the same thing, keeping that space underneath the fingers. And that's going to give us a D6 sus2 sound. So, really nice. If you wanted to, you could keep that shape going all the way up the guitar to get your E5 up on this 7th fret now. Still got that open string if you want to thicken it out. And you get that. So some really nice chord voicings going on here. But let's get back into the performance. I'm just going to jump in here because we're into the guitar solo, and this is what we're going to be looking at. With the playing going on here, it's amazing what Mike achieves with so little, because he's spending all of his time on the 12th fret, 15th fret of that high E string and B string as well, and playing through some of these classic blues shapes, and also hammering on, pulling off, playing lines like that kind of thing. And just to mention about that, with the first finger barring on that high E string and B string, if you are hitting that high E string and then you get a good hammer on and pull off with the 3rd finger on the 15th fret of the B, like that, and then pull off, then you'll get that sound. And that's exactly the kind of sound that we get from Mike. But just starting the solo, this is where we have these chords. So really nice chords to solo over as well. But when we get into the lead, we've got this. So this unison bend, which is having a mute applied to it. So we're not going and keeping that unison bend ringing out the whole time. To begin with, that. So we've got a little gap between our bend and then a little upstroke on that high E string. So once we've got into the solo, we're spending a lot of time here with our bending on that 15th fret of the high E string, and also that 15th fret of the B as well, going up to. And you start to realize that Mike is just using the same notes here, but it's the way that he's piecing them together and using different techniques to keep it interesting the whole time. Also throwing in some classic Chuck Berry type and having all downstrokes there. If you want to, you can have a little upstroke in there as well. But it's all really keeping it interesting. He's pretty much going to be spending most of his solo on the G string, the B, and the high E string. He's not really going lower than that. He might go for a couple of notes, but he's going to be keeping your interest. It's all about the way that Mike pieces this together to serve the track, because that's very much what he is like. And just playing through, I think I got a harmonic there hitting the guitar on the chair, and it reminds me of that. The harmonics that he throws in the verse, but just maybe it was destiny to remind me of that. But the way that Mike pieces together his solos is all about serving the track, and it's never an ego trip. And this is pretty much Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers in a nutshell, is not showing off, just producing great songs and great live performances, and giving you live performances that are so similar to the studio version that you can tell they have just got in the studio, set up and played. and the engineers just recorded it all and then mixed it and they release it. So he is one of those players that will stay faithful to the original solo that you'll find in the studio version of the song, but also just tweak it ever so slightly live. And just to mention the concept of the solo here, like I said at the beginning of the video, we will be trying to break it down a little bit, but pretty much our pentatonic shape 1 that we have on our 12th fret, and we're in E minor here, so it's the E minor pentatonic shape 1 that you want to go to, exactly the same as my last analysis video on Wishbone Ash. But anyway, once you've got this shape and you're focusing on just the E string, the B string, and the G string, then you'll start to find where Mike's spending most of his time with this technique of borrowing the first finger and then bending with the second finger on that G. And just extending the shape a little bit higher up in order to now have our bend on the 17th fret. And you can use that little slide on the G if you want to get back down into your traditional shape 1. And we do see Mike ascending higher up, but let's get back into the solo and then we'll stop it again and see what he's doing. There we have it again. And let me just mention vibrato, the way that Mike just applies that at the end in order to get that note to sing. And then we'll be back into that unison bend. And applying the vibrato there as well. So just great control throughout. And just making it nice to listen to. It's great when you're listening to a player who has total control of vibrato because their guitar is singing and it's singing well rather than sounding like it's singing badly. But anyway, let's get back into it. And now he's getting really high up. We had this little slide on the high E string and B string, just barring, sliding up, just hitting his minor pentatonic shape 1, really. And as he ascends, he keeps on going, and we have this. He actually starts, has his bend here, and he is going to go as high as all the frets that I have on my Fender Strat. All the way up there, so that was quite a stretch in order to get there. But also this same technique that we had earlier, I think he just dotted it in there. Now a little bit higher up, we're going to be barring on the 17th fret of our high E string and our B string, but still applying that exact same technique of hammering on with that third finger and then pulling off, same as here. Let's get back into it. And there we have it. What a great live performance. And what a great live version. It's just so well executed across the whole band. You're never going to listen to a performance like that and be able to spot anything that you would change. And even with the emotion of the solo, it is the hallmark of a top player, where they can keep your attention throughout a whole solo, and it's minimal effort seemingly, but as well as having minimal input with the amount of notes that are being used. There are plenty of players who rely on techniques and playing really fast all the time to almost fly under the radar and get away with playing a guitar solo because it's just all fast, and now I can go back into the background and get back into the rhythm. Whereas a guy like Mike will get to the front of the stage and just play in that top part of minor pentatonic shape 1, but still melt your face with not so much speed. There are little elements of speed in there, but it's just pure melody. and just pure hooks, and some of these lines that are so well executed that you're just waiting to hear what he does with these notes next, because it's always going to sound different. Due to having that ability on the fretboard and the ear for melody as well, let me mention that Mike was a co-writer and had that compositional awareness, but also ability to write songs with Tome. Having that means that he is in demand all the time, because he can turn his ear to any particular song and come up with a solo that's going to fit the song. It's going to be melodic, it's going to be right for the track that he's playing over the top of, and that is his approach. And guitarists like that will always be in demand, because they're always serving the composition and never trying to take the limelight, but just trying to add something to a particular composition so that the solo section just sits within it and complements it. And that is what it's all about as a lead guitarist, in my opinion. Of course, Mike has collaborated and played with so many different artists and bands. He played on Don Henley's The Boys of Summer. I think that's something I've probably mentioned in the past. But because of the nature of the way that he plays, guitarists like Mike are few and far between, and that's why they'll always be in demand, because of that ability to turn their ear and their playing to pretty much any track that is put in front of them. But thank you guys so much for suggesting this video for me to take a look at, and keep their suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!